Are you tired of running out of money before the month ends? Let's talk about some simple budgeting tips that will change the way you manage your finances. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing some monthly budgeting tips. About a week ago, I shared some monthly planning tips, and that is when I was like, ooh, let me share some monthly budgeting tips as well, because I have tips and tricks for managing money more effectively. One thing that you should know about me is that I am no finance guru, technically. I'm no investment guru. I am none of that. I am a financial social worker, so I do have some cred, but I am not here sharing tips and tricks necessarily as a financial social worker or as a finance professional of any sort. I'm just sharing how I manage my finances as a regular girly. You do not need to be rich or wealthy to manage your finances well. You do not need to be ashamed of having maybe a lower income to manage your finances well. Moral of the story is that anybody can learn effective money management tips and learn how to more effectively manage their finances. My husband and I both work full-time in public education. He is a teacher, I'm a social worker, so we're not rich, but we're not poor either because we know how to manage our money. Let's talk about it. I know people like to shy away from the term budget, and that's fine. You absolutely can. In the world of financial social work, we actually call it a spending and saving plan. Doesn't matter what you call it. You don't need to call it anything. You just need to follow the tips and the strategies for actually creating the plan. A lot of people associate the word budget with restrict, but that's not necessarily what it is. It's just a spending and a saving plan. You have to have a plan. I mean, even large businesses and corporations have a budget. They cannot operate effectively if they don't know how much money they're bringing in and how much they are spending. So think of it that way. Also, it helps to think about how it's not actually anything that will technically restrict you. That's not the purpose. Mine certainly doesn't restrict me. I just booked a cruise for 4 yesterday on a whim on Super Bowl Sunday, but it actually can allow you freedom. If I know that I'm going to bring in $10,000 in any given month, and then I see that my bills and expenses are $4,000 and that's how much I need to survive, then that means I actually have the freedom to spend or save or invest or put towards debt $6,000. If you ask me, that's the epitome of freedom. Knowing is the epitome of freedom. Not knowing is actually where the restriction lies. Now, of course, those are the real major reasons why you might want to have a spending and saving plan or a money plan, but also it can help to reduce stress and to help you save for big expenses, help you save for big purchases, help you pay off debt, help you invest, help you retire early, etc. Step 1, you need to know your income and your expenses. A lot of people kind of get caught up on this part because they don't really know their income and they don't really know their expenses, but it is absolutely step 1. You can't create a budget if you do not have those two things figured out. Gone are the days where people are working one job and that one job is doing the trick. Nowadays, income can include your salary from your full-time job, any side hustles, any part-time job that you have. For some people, it can include EBT or even like child support. Step 1, part 2 is to track your expenses. This is going to be anything from essentials like bills, like mortgage, rent, water, sewer, electricity, internet, to non-essential expenses like subscriptions, eating out, or even travel. You're going to need some kind of app to track this. I use a Notion tracker that I purchased, but you can also create your own Notion tracker. Signing up for Notion is free. You can use apps like You Need a Budget or even Every Dollar. You can use Fudget, which I have been ranting and raving about for what feels like millennia, or you can use paper and pen in a regular smegular notebook. One of my highest viewed videos is how to create a budget using a simple Dollar Tree, Dollar General notebook and pencil or pen. So check out that video if you're interested in pen and paper budgeting, but in this day and age, a lot of people are going digital. So figuring out a tool to use and one that resonates with you and that fits into your routine is going to be helpful in keeping track of all of your income and all of your expenses. A budget cannot exist until you are tracking your income and your expenses. Even if you wanted to start budgeting tomorrow, unless you know what your income is and your expenses, it is going to be difficult to create a budget. Step 2 is to set realistic goals. And when I say realistic, I mean realistic. If you bring in $3,000 per month, you may not be able to put towards debt $1,500 per month like maybe Betty Bob is doing up the street or on the internet. You're gonna have to do what is realistic to your income and your expenses and your financial situation. So setting realistic goals is super important. Investing a bunch of money and maybe even pursuing FIRE might not be at the top of your to-do list. So again, setting goals that are realistic to you and your situation. And also understanding that your situation will change. So one year you may be able to put a decent amount towards debt. You might have a kid the next year and have to pay for childcare, which is going to cut into that amount that you may have been previously putting towards debt. So that's going to change. Or maybe you pay off all your debt and then you have extra funds. So you have to figure out what you're going to do with those. I know on the internet, it can be a little bit difficult. I have to hold myself accountable as well because it may seem like what other people are doing with their money is a good idea, but it might not be a good idea for you. The cool thing in life is that we get to do whatever we want and we have the autonomy and freedom to do so. So you get to just choose what will work best for you. There's no rule book to this. There's nothing that suggests you have to invest X amount, put X amount towards debt, or save X amount. You need to do what is realistic for you. In doing so, it's also worth breaking down your short-term goals versus your long-term goals. In the short term, you may be able to pay off that $1,000 balance on your credit card, but a long-term goal may be paying off your $10,000 balance on your vehicle or paying off your $200,000 mortgage. As long as you're working towards something, that's all that matters. My philosophy is that as long as I'm making progress, be it slow or fast, then that's all that matters to me. I would love to tell you that your goals should be SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. But I don't know, the clinician in me is tired of hearing about SMART goals, especially in relation to money. Yes, it's important, but honestly, you can still make great financial progress if you don't have SMART goals. Technically, I don't have any SMART goals, but I just have an idea about what I want out of life and what I want my money to do for me. So I don't even have SMART goals, and that would be hypocritical for me to tell you to do so, but it could be very much helpful. So consider setting SMART goals. Step 3 is to create the actual budget or money plan or spending and saving plan. A lot of people go by the 50-30-20 rule, which means that 50% of their income is going towards needs, 30% towards wants, and 20% towards savings. Ironically, that works very well with my business budget, but it doesn't really work as well with my personal budget. And the reason for that is we are typically able to save more than 20% of our income. So it does work as like a bare minimum rule to live by, but it just doesn't align as well with our personal budget as it does with our business budget. You can also consider doing a zero-based budget, which is what we do. That means that we give every dollar a job or an assignment. We do not leave any money to chance. Every dollar that comes in here needs to have somewhere to go, and it needs to have a job. It cannot just be a freeloader. It needs to have a job. And I don't want to wonder where it went, so therefore I tell it where to go. You can also consider doing the cash envelope system. That is pretty popular. I've never been a cash girly. I'm not one now, and so I'm not going to start using cash at any point in my life. I did attempt it once, but it's not for me, so I quit. And that is, again, the freedom in being able to have the autonomy to do what you want with your finances. I always say, so long as your finances are not negatively impacting your dependents, it doesn't really matter what you're doing with your money. Similarly to the 50-30-20 rule, there's also the 80-20 rule, which is basically 80% going towards expenses, 20% towards savings. Very much similar to the 50-30-20 rule, but that's also an alternative strategy. To be honest, you can actually mix and match a lot of these we have over the years, but the pay yourself first method just suggests that you pay yourself first. That's basically what it suggests. So a certain amount will go towards savings before you get to spending money. Lots of people do this regularly when it comes to tithing. So they will tithe off the top. So it's the same method, but you're just saving off the top. Or maybe you're investing off the top, which of course is a form of saving, or even putting money towards debt off the top and then just kind of spending the rest of your money accordingly. Those are more of the popular methods. Of course, you can mix and match because it's your money and you get to choose what you do with it and how you manage it. Step 4 is to build an emergency fund. Some people will do this at the top of their financial freedom or budgeting journey. They might save a certain amount so that they can start then putting money towards debt or, working towards financial freedom. Other people do that, but also continue to save as they go. Some people just start working towards investing or paying down debt or whatever the case is and continuing to save along the journey. Again, it's up to you and what feels comfortable to you. A lot of people suggest starting with a $1,000 emergency fund. A lot of people suggest ending with 3 to 6 months of living expenses in an emergency fund. But it is important to have an emergency fund. The best part of having an emergency fund is that it will not derail your goals. So if you're trying to have your car paid off in 6 months and you have an emergency fund and you have an emergency come up, the goal would be to dip into the emergency fund instead of derailing your whole plans. But again, you kind of got to do what feels right with your spirit. Having an emergency fund and some savings is always going to be a good idea because emergencies will definitely happen. They may not happen frequently like in our case, but they are going to happen. Medical emergencies, random car repairs, all of those things are going to take place whether we want them to or not. It's basically the one constant in life is that things that can go wrong are going to go wrong. It's actually called Murphy's Law. Of course, having a large emergency fund will be super helpful, especially in the case of possibly being laid off or getting fired or losing your job. Having 3 to 6 months of living expenses saved up would be very helpful in that type of situation. Some quick tips for building up an emergency fund include automatic transfers, so just making sure that money is going automatically to your savings account for your emergency fund. Cutting unnecessary spending like eating out or any other problem area within your budget. Likely cutting out that problem area can help you to retain more money. And of course, starting small. You can start by saving $1 a day, $5 a week, $20 a month, $100 a month, whatever you need to do to get you to your goal. People often like to sleep on small amounts. I have people in my personal life who do that. They're like, I would stop getting my nails done for $100 a month. But it's the one thing that brings me joy. And don't get me wrong, getting one's nails done is great. I have been a person to get my nails done for a very long time, but $100 per month being saved or retained is $1,200 a year. That's a decent amount of money. So don't sleep on these small amounts because small amounts add up. That's just a fact. Step 5 is reviewing and adjusting your budget. Reviewing your budget daily or weekly or bi-weekly is going to be essential. I think I review our budget daily unless we are out of town, or maybe sometimes on the weekends I may skip a day or two, but for the most part, homegirls tracking income, expenses, reviewing our budget on a very regular basis. Probably like more than what I really need to, but I don't know. I have to just be on top of things and seeing where our money's going. All of our bills are on auto pay, and so I like to check behind those billers every time that a bill is supposed to be deducted from our account just to make sure everything is kosher. So I'm pretty in tune with our money. Also, in the event that there is a job loss or something like that, you may actually have to sit down and really and truly adjust your budget, cut a bunch of expenses, stuff like that. So it's just important to be in tune with your financial situation. Budgeting is a continuous process and may even require tweaks over time. Likely will require tweaks over time. As a recap, you want to start by listing out your income and expenses. You want to set realistic goals based on your financial situation. You can set goals ahead of time, but they're not going to be as specific and as smart until you have an actual depiction of what your income and expenses look like each month. Technically, listing out your income and expenses is actually creating the budget, but in creating the budget, you also just want to consider what kind of budgeting methods you're going to use. So maybe you list your income and expenses just based on what they are, and then you decide, okay, I want to try the 50-30-20 rule, so let me adjust this accordingly so that it is in alignment with the 50-30-20 rule. If you have no emergency fund, then at that point, that's a good time to start by setting goals for creating an emergency fund and trying to figure out how much money you can allocate on whatever basis to creating an emergency fund. And then at that point, it is time to go forth and prosper and actually continue to stay on top of your budget and checking in with your budget, tracking your expenses as they take place throughout the month, tracking your income as you're paid throughout the month, tracking your expenses as they occur throughout the month. In terms of savings, we talked about this a little bit briefly. There are all types of fun saving challenges that you might consider taking advantage of, or of course, automating your savings, setting up automatic transfers, or of course, paying yourself first, which might look like setting up auto transfers. In terms of debt payment strategies, of course, there is the snowball method where you are paying off your debt from the smallest balance to the largest balance, which is really helpful in building momentum, if nothing else. Other people consider the avalanche method to be supreme, which would be paying off your debts from highest interest to lowest interest. Technically, that's going to save you money in the long run, usually. So that is a method worth considering. And then I always have a third debt payoff strategy, which is personal to me, which is paying off the debts that are annoying first, or paying off the debts that you want to see gone first. Doesn't matter the interest rate, doesn't matter the balance, none of that. Sometimes, or whenever we were paying off lots of debts, I would just pay off the debts that I felt like paying off in that moment. Didn't matter to me as long as I paid off the debt, as long as I paid the people back who I borrowed from. That's all that matters, right? So if you have a family member or a friend who wants the money back that they let you borrow and they are hassling you for that money, it's probably worth prioritizing paying them back first. Plus, that is relational, so I do always feel like it's important to take care of those debts first. You don't want to end an entire relationship over money that you said that you would pay back. In terms of investing, if you have a 401k at your job or something similar, that's always a good place to start because there is typically company matching, and that is not technically free money. It's part of your compensation package for being employed by that employer. So I don't know. I don't think anything in life is free, but it's quite literally a part of your compensation package. So not taking advantage of it is actually harmful. In addition to an employer-sponsored retirement plan, you might also think of doing some additional investing via a brokerage account or even a Roth IRA. And before we wrap up this video, I want to share with you some common budgeting mistakes to avoid. One of them being not tracking every expense. Some people try to get out of this, but you can't, because how are you going to know if you're sticking to your $400 food budget if you're not tracking those expenses? Although there is a caveat or two. There are some strategies that you can use to avoid doing that, but they have to align with the way that you're managing your money. As an example, let's say your food budget is $400, so you withdraw $100 from your bank every week, which of course would be $400. As you're spending the money, obviously your cash will be dwindling down every time that you spend money on food. And so you could technically track your food expenses that way. I'm not here to hate on the cash envelope system, but I just feel like I have quite literally never in real life seen anyone use the cash envelope system. Yes, there are people who do it. I have never witnessed anyone to do it. Personally, I have not found success in doing it. So I just feel like, yes, that is a strategy that could be helpful. I just feel like most people are not doing that. And by most people, I mean the vast majority of people. So for which case, you're going to have to track every expense using that Excel spreadsheet that we talked about, or that Notion tracker, or the pen and the paper, or the budgeting app. Some people even open up different bank accounts. So essentially they have like an electronic version of a cash envelope system. So in one checking account, they might actually put the $400 in for food. And then as they're swiping, obviously they are seeing that the money is dwindling away. I think that that's a fabulous idea, having multiple checking accounts. Some people even go as far as having reloadable gift cards and using those to keep track of their various expenses throughout the month, particularly more so like the discretionary spending. Another common budgeting mistake is not setting realistic goals. Forgetting to account for irregular expenses really seems to do a number on certain people. Sometimes when I'm doing budget coaching sessions, I find that a lot of people really struggle with that. But I'm like, okay, what about shopping? What about hair? What about any other kind of beauty maintenance? What about gifts? What about offering at church? Holidays, annual subscriptions, or even semi-annual subscriptions. We actually have to account for those as well. And then I would say not adjusting the budget as life happens, like if you get a new job or you move to a new city, / not checking in with the budget. You can't stay on top of your budget by just looking at it casually every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks or not at all in any given month. Staying on top of your budget and your money means checking in with it more frequently. Those are my current monthly budgeting tips. I feel like I can do a video about this on an annual basis, but those are the current budgeting tips that I have now. If you have any monthly budgeting tips that I did not cover because maybe I forgot to cover them or maybe I just simply don't know about them, definitely consider leaving them down below in the comment section. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know about that as well. Anyway, that's going to be it for today's video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give this video a like, subscribe if you're new and if you're liking what you're seeing, and I will catch you guys right back here in a few days in a brand new video. Bye guys.